Hi, welcome everyone to my brush cleaning demonstration. Super exciting. I'm sure you wish I could clean all your brushes for you. Listen, cleaning your brushes is the best way to ensure their longevity and so you don't waste your money on brushes that just end up drying. And it will definitely affect the way that you paint as well. So take care of your brushes and they will last a long time. Now that being said, I've already left these for a couple days and they're looking really funky. So I recommend clean your brushes as often as possible, even while you're painting. Now let's back up a little bit and talk about linseed oil. So linseed oil is what's called a drying oil. It dries by oxidization, and so it's slightly different than using cooking oil. So in this, what this means is that while you're painting, you don't want to get cooking oil into your paint films. So I strongly recommend, if you're not going to be using solvents, to use a little bit of linseed oil to clean your brushes while working. So what I do is I take a brush and I just squeeze a little bit of oil on a paper towel, and I squeeze from the ferrule, which is this nickel cylinder here, to the tip. And I try and get as much oil out as possible. Now, if you're keeping your brushes dedicated, you don't have to clean so much as when you are dipping your brush in various colors. So this is another reason for keeping your brushes dedicated. However, it does mean at the end of the day that you'll have more brushes to clean, especially if you're working in a large palette at the same time. So you want to press all of the pigment out of the bristles, and that should be clean enough to paint with. Okay, so if you're done working for the day, you might consider using a cheap vegetable oil. So this is not Scotch, but canola oil. And I save these tomato cans for use. So I pour the vegetable oil in the tomato can. And what I do is I start with the cleanest brush. That way I know that I'm not going to be tainting the oil too much. So you just want to dip a little bit in there and press, same manner, press from the ferrule to the bristles. Get as much paint out as you can, so you should not see any pigment on the paper towel. That's when you know that you finished with the first step of cleaning your brushes. The second step involves rinsing out the oil from your brush. You don't want to let the brush, you don't want to let the oil sit in the brush and dry. That's another way to ruin it, right? So make sure that after the first step, you rinse out the cooking oil or the linseed oil from your brush with using like dish soap or Murphy's oil soap. Okay, so I recommend pouring a little bit more oil than I've got here and just dip the bristles. You don't want to swish it around. That's a sure way to get pigment into the oil, and you want to keep this oil as clean as possible so that you know when your brushes are clean. Okay, so this is probably pretty good. Sometimes the bristles get stained and they just stay that way, so some of it will come off with a little bit of work, but I think at this point, this brush is fairly clean. Okay, the trouble is when you get to big dirty brushes like this one here. And so I'm already starting to dry. You'll see that as soon as I press it, tons of paint comes off. Now, a brush like this can take me 15-20 minutes just to clean one brush, unfortunately. And so as much as I advocate for using big fat brushes, it's a pain in the ass to keep them clean. And so make sure that you know what you're getting into. Okay, so this is filled with pigment, and this might take me a number of paper towels to clean off as well. What you can do if you're gonna come back to your brushes and work a little bit later in the day is you can clean them like I showed you before in the linseed oil, and then wrap them up in a paper towel with some oil in it, and that will keep them fairly fresh. Okay, so this is gonna take me a minute. I'll set this one aside. Want to make sure that you wipe the handles as well. That way you can read the numbers on them, the information. Also, it's just easier when you know that there's no paint on the handle. That's a sure way to keep your gloves clean and the rest of your house clean, is to keep the paint off the handle. So I'm mainly using my thumb and forefinger here just to kind of squeeze and pinch the paint out. So you might get tempted when your brush is clean, when you're cleaning with the vegetable oil, you might be tempted to kind of work back into a painting, but make sure that you don't get this oil into your paint films because it does not dry the same way, and you'll end up with problems down the line. Okay, so that's my demonstration, at least of the first part. The second part is fairly straightforward. All you need to do is take your brushes to the sink and rinse in warm water and dish soap. Okay, so once you've done that step and the brushes are wet and clean, just shape them with your fingers until they become the shape that they originally came in, and lay them flat on a clean paper towel to dry. Never store your brushes bristled down. It will bend the bristles and ruin the brush. Likewise, you don't want to ever store them up because paint will fall into the ferrule and dry there, again ruining the brush. So keep your brushes flat on a paper towel to dry. Okay, happy painting.